What's going on, gentlemen? And today we are doing something a little different than we've been doing. I know we've been doing the 20 to 30 minute little mini episodes on different topics, but today we're going to be interviewing Andrew Milburn. And I say interviewing, but it's just more of a conversation on your story and just to hear everything that God's done in your life.
Okay.
So, welcome, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, welcome Andrew.
Hey.
I don't know if you've been following the social media pages that Guy started.
Yeah.
For all the brotherhood stuff and the videos that we've done so far. But yeah, man, it's good to find that our schedules were clashing a little bit over the past couple weeks, but I'm glad to have you here.
Came into alignment.
Yeah.
It's good.
So let's just start out and let's just jump into it.
Okay.
Who are you?
Wow, it's a good question.
Let's get real deep right off the bat.
Let's get real deep right off the bat. Well, I am, I would say this season of my life, I am pursuing God. That's who I am.
Okay.
So.
Good enough for me.
Yeah. It's a hard question to ask.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
It's like an interview question.
Question to answer. Yeah.
Tell me about yourself.
Yeah. Right?
Dude, I hated those questions.
Yes. Yeah, you never know what to say.
No.
Yeah.
Especially because I don't like talking about myself.
Exactly.
So I give the standard, well, I'm dependable. I'm honest.
Yeah.
I'm a hard worker.
I have 5 kids. I go to work. I come home.
So you have
church.
5 kids?
I have 5 kids, yeah.
Okay. How many boys, how many girls?
2 boys, 3 girls. Yep.
What's it like to have boys? So I only have
That's
4
right.
girls.
You don't. Man, it's a blast. It's pretty cool watching a little mini version of you grow up. And for the fact that you get to try to train them up to be better than you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's a whole new thing for me because I probably didn't care about that as much in the past as I have the last 3 years or so.
Right.
Yeah. And so helping them. So there's a major age difference. So I have a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old boy.
Golly.
Yes.
Well,
and so
I guess I don't have that big of a difference. I've got a 13 and a 3.
Okay.
So that's 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's 10 years.
13.
Yeah. Do the math. Yeah, that's 10 years. So there's different, like the 5-year-old is just nonstop ball of energy.
Yeah.
Wants your attention as soon as you walk in the door.
Oh, yeah.
Wants nothing more than to play with daddy.
Yeah.
Daddy's home. The 15-year-old goes to school, goes to work.
Yep.
But getting to interact with him in between those moments, getting to kind of roughhouse with him, stuff like that, mess with him, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
I have to settle and beat up Faith.
I bet she can handle her own.
She can.
I bet
now she can.
Yeah, now she can. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, just watching Isaac, my 15-year-old, come into his own.
Yeah.
And the journey and the season that he's in is pretty cool. You know, you're 15 years old, so you're still awkward.
Right.
But you're starting to figure out who you are and what you like, what you don't like, what your values might be, what they might not be, you know, what circles you want to be involved with, what circles you don't.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool watching him navigate those waters, and I'm kind of at a position to where I just get to step back, try to at least.
Yeah.
Because you don't want him making stupid mistakes that you made at 15.
Right.
But I try to step back, and I try to let him do his thing, and I just try to help him navigate those waters and be a little bit more hands-off.
Yeah.
Which, again, is easier said than done because he's a 15-year-old teenage boy.
Yeah.
We both know what that was like. And so it's like...
I can guarantee you he's a better kid than I was at 15.
He's a better kid than I was at 15.
Let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
So let's start there. What were you like around his age?
So I was more interested in girls and probably alcohol.
Okay.
Those were the two main things, you know. Growing up in the town that I grew up in, it flows freely.
Yeah.
It's very, very well. It was more accessible. I don't know if it still is, but but it was so attainable.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I started drinking probably in 7th or 8th grade. I was at a buddy's house, and we were actually at his uncle's house, and I remember them putting beer into the spaghetti sauce, and then that was my first, and then having my first actual drink that same day, you know, and I don't remember how much I drank. I just remember the next day I felt horrible, right? Because, you know, it's never hit your system before.
Yeah.
And then slowly, gradually, it just gets more and more and more and more.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was interested in girls and alcohol.
Yeah.
And so the whole girl thing, you know, it's a horrible thing to say, but, you know, pornography was involved with that.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that. And so that is something that I struggled with for a very long time past high school.
Yep.
Was pornography and alcoholism. So those were probably my two, I would say those were probably my two biggest things. But yeah, at 15 years old, I was blowing and going on both.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was not uncommon for me and my friends on a Tuesday night to be completely hammered. I mean, throughout most of my high school career.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not uncommon.
It's funny because I remember alcohol being big when I was in high school. That was kind of the thing that everyone did. But in today's world, I feel like alcohol is not as prevalent. I mean, it's. I think kids still drink.
Yeah. But
I think drugs are more readily available than they were when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
Things like pot.
Oh,
I think most people choose pot over alcohol now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really didn't touch alcohol until I was probably 19 or 20. Mm-hmm. But I was smoking before then.
Really?
So I was a big pothead.
Yeah.
Like that was my Cali. So, you know.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
So I dabbled in that a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit out of high school. I was probably 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends lived in Dallas.
Okay.
And his family owned land up here in between Munster and St. Joe area.
Yeah.
And he was very big on the pot.
Yeah.
And so that's what he and I did when he would come up. It wasn't so much the alcohol aspect with him, it was smoking.
Yeah.
Weed with him. And
you know how I know we're older? Because we say stuff like pot.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah. And, yeah, so with him, but that didn't last, but probably just a couple of years.
Yeah.
At most. And, unfortunately, he is not here anymore. He passed away.
Oh, man.
Nothing alcohol or drug related.
Okay.
It was just a freak accident that happened.
Have you lost anybody to like drugs or alcohol?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not had to experience that. But a lot of the, I mean, I pretty much at one point cut, old friends out of my life.
Yeah.
That were, so when I was in high school and I was a lot more heavily into the drinking side, we had some people come into our friend group that were a little bit more on the drug side.
Yeah.
And as we graduated, you know, I kept going the direction that I was in, and they all started going towards the drug side of it. And I pretty much I cut that out.
Right.
And I went this direction.
Smart.
And, you know, later those guys got into some trouble, stuff like that. But I'm happy to say now they are on the completely opposite fence now.
Good.
They have really, really done a great job in, you know, reconnecting with the Lord, so to speak, reconnecting with just life in general, and getting that aspect, that stuff out of their life.
That's one thing that I wish I had, was because I don't know anybody from like my high school days anymore.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to anybody in probably over a decade from high school. So everybody that I know now is people that I've met probably within the last couple of years.
Oh yeah. No, same.
That's
same
kind
here.
of my circle now. But I, like, even keeping, because I'm not on social media So I don't see anybody from the high school days. I don't know what they're up to. I don't know where they are.
Oh,
if they're married, have kids. It's a completely different life that it doesn't even ring a bell anymore.
Well, we just had our 20-year. Oh God, that's horrible. 20. That's horrible. We had it last year at homecoming, and I think there was maybe only 10 of us that showed up.
Wow.
And I hadn't seen these people since high school. Maybe except,
how big was your graduating class?
Like 21 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yours?
It was well over 2,000.
Wow. Cali.
Cali.
Yeah. No,
Dude, high school was so big that it was the old junior high that they turned into the high school because they needed another one. But they just started dropping portables out in the field.
Wow.
Just to accommodate how many kids there were.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I think probably at least a quarter of my class either got expelled or dropped out.
Wow.
Like hundreds of kids. And they told us during our senior picture, the principal stood up on the stage and told us, "You are by far the worst class that has ever come through my high school."
That's
because of all the drugs and like gang fights and stuff like that. Yeah, it was bad.
That's insane.
It was bad.
Yeah, that's what you want to tell a group of kids going out into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. You guys suck.
No joke. That's horrible. Wow. Yeah. I hadn't seen them since, except maybe just in passing. You might see them as they come home.
Yeah.
And like, oh, hey, the grocery store type of thing. But other than that, actually having conversations with them, no, not since high school.
Okay.
No. Which I didn't run around with a lot of the people in my class. I either hung out with an underclassman or I hung out with older.
Right.
And so there was very few. I think there might have been 4 total in my entire class that I actually hung out with.
Okay.
Other than that, because they were all related, they all knew each other when I came along, and it's a very tight-knit community.
Right.
And if you're an outsider, then it's pretty much like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not originally from here. So, yeah, I dealt with that a lot.
Man, what a small town.
Yeah.
That blows my mind every time I hear stuff like that.
Yep.
My graduating class was 20 people.
21 people.
What?
We could have fit y'all in one classroom. Yeah. It's so weird, too, because my kids now, so they go to the same school I did, but now it's a small 2A.
Okay.
And I'll say something like, "Oh, is that person in your class?" No, they're in the other class. Okay, but is that person in your class? Well, no, they're in the other class, Dad. I'm like,
no.
You don't understand what I'm saying. Like, you're the class of.
Yeah.
I go, so they are in your class. They might be in a separate class than you, but they are part of your 5th grade class.
Right.
As a total.
Yeah.
And they don't grasp that concept because they're like, well, they're in the other class. I'm like,
they're in a whole other room, Dad.
Yeah, they're in a whole other room, Dad. I'm like, but it's still the same class. You don't understand. So, yeah.
Where did your wife grow up?
So she grew up in the area. So Era, Lindsay, Munster, stuff like that. Yeah. So when I first met her, I was actually dating a friend of hers. So she went to.
And how old were you when you met her?
Oh, geez. Probably a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Probably. I was either a freshman or a sophomore.
Okay.
I cannot remember, but I'm thinking it was sophomore year. So what would that have made me? 15 as a freshman.
Yeah.
So, 15-ish, 16-ish is when I first met her. And we, we just, hey, how you doing? I'm Andrew. Oh, I'm Nina, blah, blah, blah. Just one of those things where, hey, this is my boyfriend, this is my friend type of thing.
Yeah.
Didn't really think much of it after that, And then, eventually as time goes in high school, you break up with this one and you start dating somebody else and never saw her again. And then our paths crossed. Actually, it was after I had graduated high school.
Okay.
Our paths crossed again. I was dating a girl in high school that, for all intents and purposes, I thought this was the girl that I was going to be with the rest of my life, and vice versa. And we ended up splitting ways, and I met Nina at a party.
Okay.
Probably a couple of weeks after. I really don't remember the time frame. And we remembered each other, and we hit it off like that, and started dating, and it lasted for about a month. And me being the stupid guy that I was, the other one wanted to get back together, and so me being stupid and young, I'm like, hey, let's play both. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
You know? And so, needless to say, Nina and her friends found out about it. My wife's friends and her found out about it.
Are you telling me this didn't work out?
No, it did not work out to my advantage at all. No. No. As, you know, most of the times it does not. So, guys, it's dumb. They're going to figure it out. Every time. And so, they tried to actually tell her, and she did not believe them. And so, Nina and I ended up splitting ways, got back with the other one, and we lasted maybe another year or so, and it should have been killed off way before that. It became miserable and everything, and then our paths crossed again, my wife and I's, Nina and I's, and she was with somebody else at the time, and I wasn't. I was just there. We became, you know, really good friends. She started hanging out with us, and then eventually it just naturally happened. And we've been together ever since. So it's 2025. So this will be our 18th year of marriage, and we've been together for 20 years.
Same.
Oh, hey, that's cool.
The exact same.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When's your anniversary?
September.
Okay, July.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's nuts, dude.
That's awesome, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be 39 this year, so 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is when we started, like, when we were hanging out before we actually started dating again.
Okay.
But we were filling each other out.
When did you guys get married? How old were you guys?
Oh, so 18 years ago. So what is that? 25.
21?
Don't ask me to do math on camera, man.
Don't ask me to do math or off a camera.
I was 21.
Okay.
I was 21.
Yes, and I was 19.
Yeah.
And I'm 2 years younger than you.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
Younger.
Whatever. Yeah, so she was 19 and I was 21. And at this point in time, so she was still in high school, by the way, when we started to hang out again and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, baby came. So my oldest child.
Okay.
You know, so we've been married 17 years right now. In July, it'll be 18.
Yeah.
My oldest child will be 18 this year. Okay. So do the math. You know, so again, yeah. But at that point in time, we had already figured out that this is who I'm going to be with.
Yeah.
This is who she's going to be with.
Right.
We loved each other, and it just, baby came first.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went to the JP. We did it simple.
Okay.
We went to the JP, had friends and family there, and yeah.
Good deal, man.
So
good deal.
Yeah.
So
5 kids later and 20 years together.
5 kids. It's only one more than I have.
Yeah. Does it seem like such a...
It seems like such a big jump. Like when I say 4, maybe it's because my family had 4 when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So 4 is like normal to me. But when I hear anything above that, I'm like, that's so many kids.
See, I was 4 growing up.
Okay.
Except there's like a 13-year difference between me and...
Right.
You know? And so, like, I was kind of an only kid growing up.
Were you the youngest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the baby.
All right.
Yeah. 2 brothers, 1 sister.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So, one of the goals that we have with this brotherhood group is to try to raise up men that find value in their marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Find value in their relationship with God, and that becomes the core of their identity, right?
Yeah.
What I've seen from a lot of men is their relationship with God just is kind of like the Sunday morning just routine.
Oh, yeah, that 1 hour a week.
And it's not who they are. Yeah. It's not their core identity is being a disciple of Jesus. So what we try to do, or what I'm trying to do through these videos, and what Guy's trying to do through his devotionals and stuff that he's posting is try to pinpoint the areas of our lives that we're not surrendered in. and trying to raise up men to actually be disciples and to be the leaders of their home and to be the leaders of their marriage.
Yeah.
So let's talk about just kind of what that process has looked like for you.
Oh, okay.
So when did you, I guess we could start with like, when did you find Christ and how has your walk kind of played out over time?
Well, we're going to go back a little bit.
That's fine.
So
We can go back as far as you want.
So, I was raised Southern Baptist.
Okay.
So, none of this would work.
Yeah, we wouldn't be allowed now,
No.
especially sitting in the front row.
No. I remember the pastor standing up there and saying, if you smoke, you go to hell. If you have tattoos, which I thought was funny because some of his deacons had tattoos, the whole 9 yards, the fire and brimstone thing. And so I grew up Southern Baptist. And so I remember very specifically, though, it was one of those, bow your heads, close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pray if anybody feels led to come up here and give your life to Christ. And, man, I was in junior high, and it was probably 6th or 7th grade, because I'm pretty sure I started, and I know that sounds weird because, you were drinking in junior high. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That came after.
Yeah.
But I remember that feeling in my chest, like my heart just would not stop.
Yeah.
And it just got louder and harder and faster. And I remember all I remember is that I stepped out and I walked up that aisle and I said yes.
Okay.
And I truly believe that was the Holy Spirit leading me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I gave my life to Christ. I can't tell you the day it was. I can't even for sure tell you the age, to the date that I was. But I can still, like it was yesterday, remember that feeling,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's how I believe that it was genuine and pure, and right. It's me who let the world get in, right?
Yep.
Now, being a young kid like that, you don't really have control. You can't drive yourself. You can't,
Right.
Right. And so, and it's conversations I've had with my parents, and my mother regrets ever leaving the church just because of things she didn't agree with, right? Because you're not there for the preacher, you're there for Jesus.
That took me a long time to figure out.
That took me a long time to figure out as well. Yeah, you're not there for him, you're there for yourself, your soul, and your relationship with Christ.
Right.
And so she regrets all of that, right, obviously. And then, so that's when, but then, hanging out with the world and hanging out with friends and being more conscious of what they're wanting to do versus what you should do, that's when the alcohol started getting in.
Okay.
And stuff like that. And I became a major drinker. And so, all throughout high school, like I said earlier, it was not uncommon for me and my friends to be completely trashed on a random Tuesday night.
Okay.
Right. And getting up the next day with hangovers going to school.
Okay.
Horrible decisions. There were countless nights when I woke up the next day and I don't even know how I got home.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible decisions, right? Decisions that I pray daily that my children do not make. Right. Because as a parent now, I understand more of the consequences that go with that, not only for me, but what if I would have hurt somebody? What if, I have no idea. That stuff happens every day. I could ruin my life, but I could also ruin somebody else's life. Yeah. So, the alcoholism was going, and being as old as Nick and I am, the internet was not as prevalent at the time. So, the pornography and everything was more magazines related until, I'm sure you remember the AOL dial-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the AOL dial-up, but...
Don't lie.
But I never had the stones to look it up at my house because...
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, man. My family shared one computer.
Oh, we did too. Oh, yeah. It was right. It was like, there was this little room right off the kitchen.
There was a little bush doors around the corner from my house that we found an old nudie bag in, and we all, as friends, were like, this stays here.
Yeah.
And whenever we want to look at it, we come here. This is where it is,
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I did. So that's when all of that started to get into my system, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that is something to this day that I'm very passionate about talking to people with, because alcoholism is like, you can only be controlled by one thing.
Yeah.
Right. And we both know from our walk,
Mm-hmm.
that the Holy Spirit is not going to, God is not going to force himself on you.
No.
He wants you. He wants to be in relationship with you. Every step you take, he takes. You take, he takes.
Yep.
Right. The world is going to force itself on you.
Right.
Any way, shape, or form it can. It's prevalent in today's media, the TV shows you watch. I mean, you can turn on today's TV and watch softcore porn in your living room with your kids
100%,
around.
yeah.
100%. The language.
Yeah.
I mean, the commercials. I mean, it's everywhere. The destruction that the world wants to put in you, that the enemy wants to put in you, is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's so much more easily accessible in today's world than it was when we were kids.
So much more.
Like, at least that we know about it.
Yeah.
Right. And so the alcohol was a lot, when I was younger, was a lot more of an addiction than the pornography was when I was younger.
Okay.
As I got older and technology started to catch up, the pornography got more and more, right?
Yep.
Especially now that we carry computers in our pockets.
Yep.
To be completely 100% honest.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I said in that last video I did, was my heart goes out to these young guys coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Because their strongholds with pornography and just stuff that they can physically see and watch online.
Oh, yeah.
Is a click of a button.
Well, it's like you said, you had one computer in your house, right? So did we. It was in a room that had no doors on it. It was easily accessible, right?
Yep.
And so, but my son can take this and go to his bedroom, and I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I have no clue what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have allowed, as a society, in my opinion, we have allowed the enemy easier access.
Not just easier access. Full access.
Full access, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? We've allowed it into our homes.
Yeah.
And, it truly takes the fruits of the Spirit, self-control. It fully takes self-control. It takes self-control for me not to pick it up and look at it at night when everybody's asleep because even though I am so far away from that in my walk now, there's still temptation. We're still men. And that's one of the things that the enemy has figured out about us.
And we're almost 40.
And we're almost 40.
Can you imagine being a 17-year-old kid?
When your hormones are raging?
Just out of control.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And all you've got to do is
a few buttons and you're there. Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
Just endless
videos. Access to videos, pictures, whatever it is you want. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's death and destruction right there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the alcohol was slowly gaining more of a stronghold in my life.
Yeah.
As technology started to progress, it started, the pornography started to gain more of a stronghold in my life. And in high school, I had started going back to church on my own, but mainly just on their Wednesday nights, which was Awanas in the Baptist community.
I remember Awanas.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Trying to get those badges. I was actually, to be completely honest with you, I was actually just there for a girl.
Yeah.
To try to get her attention.
Right.
But as I was going through that, I was trying to actually do it. There were blips on the radar with me to where I would, I've always liked church.
Right.
I've always liked the Bible. But the world had such a pull on me because I let it.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't give it the time of day.
Right.
I would here and there every once in a while, but it was so few and far between. Right. And then as I started getting older, and then my wife and I and things of that nature. So, at a young age, having a baby, you're married now, and you can probably relate to this as a man. Mm-hmm. The world just slams you with, to be a man in this world, you need to go to work. Mm-hmm. You pretty much need to kill yourself at work.
Yep.
Which means work a ton of hours.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you're home or not, as long as your wife and your kids are taken care of financially and they have food on the table. It doesn't matter if you're there or not.
Yeah.
Well, then she becomes the leader of the household. Mm-hmm. She becomes the spiritual leader of the household. And no offense, women were not designed for that.
No.
No offense at all. Some of you single moms, you step up and it's phenomenal. Some of you mothers that are married step up and it's phenomenal. It truly is. But a house without a man, a father or a husband, or a what do you call it? Just sitting on the sidelines, just lukewarm or apathetic or whatever you want to call it. It's not what God designed us to be, right?
No.
And so just going throughout this process, so let me back up a little bit. So being young, right? I completely bought into that because that's you're just bombarded with it.
Yep.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. You can scroll social media and there's a million pages of what it takes to be a man in today's world. You've got to work. You've got to make money. You've got to, it doesn't matter if you're home or not, make that money, get to that next level, whatever it is, reach that world's brass ring.
Yep.
And I completely bought into that.
Yeah.
Right. Which comes with stress because you're exhausted, you're tired, you've got quotas, you've got sales, you've got whatever it is you've got to meet. Right. And what's some of the best ways to deal with stress in the world? Alcohol. Mm-hmm. So that's when alcohol really started, right? Because as a kid, yes, I had easy access to it, but I didn't have unlimited access to it, so to speak, with my own money, right? And but I was a workaholic. I did not care. So I was in retail management, and there were literally times when I would spend the night in my store, doing resets, stuff like that. Rarely cared about being home because in my mind, I was always reaching for that next brass ring.
Yep.
That once I got to that level, made that amount of money, then I'll be good and I can slow down. Well, and then I wouldn't slow down, right? Because the pressures of that position.
Well, because each time you go up in a position,
you've got more responsibilities.
The responsibilities,
yes,
those raise too.
Yes, absolutely.
So slowing down's never an option.
Slowing down's never an option. No. Oh yeah, in today's world, no. It's if you let it, the world will literally run you dry 24/7.
Yep.
And I didn't know barriers. I didn't know boundaries, right? And so anything that my bosses asked of me, I did.
Yep.
Didn't matter. I don't care. I'm going to go do it. I don't care how upset you are. I don't care how upset, you've been here with the kid all day, which, by the way, in and of itself is so much more of a job than I've ever had.
Yeah.
And my wife has done it with 5 kids, being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
The probably 95% of our marriage and homeschooled most of them. So, I mean, I could never do that.
Yeah.
That is something I could never accomplish. So she's phenomenal. She is far, far above me as far as amazing.
Yeah.
And so just being a workaholic and working those 70, 80-hour work weeks and just coming home and all you do is you exist. So I was giving all to my work and I was only existing at home.
Right.
The motions, the showering, the eating, the sleeping. That was it. She had everything. She had this. This was what I needed to do. This is what I wanted to do. And that caused turmoil in our marriage. It caused conflict, right? And the conflict as jobs got, as we got different, or as I got different jobs and more responsibility at bigger companies or whatever, it would cause more and more conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times throughout our marriage that, she would make a comment and I would be like, well, you know how to fix that, divorce me. I mean, what else do you want me to tell you? Like, whatever you want to do, I don't care. Do whatever you want, right? And it's so stupid of me, right? And so as we came, so that was we moved off, and as we started to come back home, right? Got out of retail and went to a more 9-to-5. So left the sporadic schedule, went to a more 9-to-5. Still worked like a workaholic, and the stresses really started to get to me. And so that's when the alcoholism really picked up quite a bit.
Okay.
It was, up until 3 years ago, it was not uncommon for me to finish and this might not be a lot for some people, but finish by the time I got home from work within that first hour, I very, very easily could have had 4 to 6 gone. Like beers. I was never a hard liquor person, but beer.
I would have been blacked out.
Yeah. No, I mean, by within an hour, I could have 4 to 6 of them down.
Yeah.
Like, very easily. Right. And, so allowing that to control, and then alcohol just amplifies.
Right.
Right. And so the anger, the frustration, stuff like that, it was never physical, but it was always verbal. Right.
Yeah.
We would always get into it and things of that nature. I kind of feel like I'm being a little sporadic here, but,
it's making sense what you're saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel sporadic from this end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because it's hard to pinpoint like specifics, right?
Yeah.
But so like right now I'm talking about alcohol, and I'll go back into the pornography in a minute, because I think it's easier to kind of isolate them. Yeah. Yes. So like the alcohol, I mean, this is going to be embarrassing for me.
We like embarrassing here.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
Because we've all got embarrassing stories.
Well, yes, and I just don't want to embarrass other people. But I truly believe that if my journey, if my walk, if what I have gone through and the heartache that I have felt can help somebody else, then it's completely
That's why
worth it.
I'm completely okay with exposing all the crap that I've done,
well,
all my flaws.
Yes,
because I know I'm not the only one that has walked down the path that I walked down.
Oh, yeah.
And there's people right now that are struggling with similar situations. Even if it's not the exact situation, they can take something from your story and say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's me.
And my wife's husband, I'm my wife's husband. My wife's dad died from alcoholism.
Okay.
And so this was very near and dear to her heart.
Yeah.
And the fact that I knew this, but yet I still did this, makes it even worse.
Right.
Right. Because she watched her dad, and her dad was a mountain of a man. I mean, massive. Could palm your face, massive. Dude was a beast. And to see this mountain of a man just slowly wither and waste away because of alcohol. And then the feelings that it brought up in her of not feeling good enough for him to stop, and here I am just drinking my life away. I mean, that's literally what it got to. I was drinking my life away. I was almost 300 pounds, and I was just, I literally only cared about, it got to the point to where I literally only started to care about, like, do I have a Miller Lite in the fridge? Right. Like, if I don't, I need to get some. You know what? I'm not sure I do. Let me go pick some up before I go home. Right. That's where my life was going. That's the trend that my life was on. Yeah. With alcohol. Right. And so we had a lot of conflict, a lot of heartache, and it's all because of me and my choices. Right. And, So allowing that to happen was really, I wasted so much of my life with that. Yeah. Like, the years that I wasted with that are just mind-blowing to me now. And just the hurt and the pain that I caused my wife and kids. But, like, it got so bad. There was one time we had a office Christmas party at one of the bars in town, and we got there around noon, and I did not leave until almost midnight. And it was just beer after beer after beer. My wife cannot drive at night. She has no depth perception. Right. So she can't tell distances in the dark, right? And so my mom, grown man, and my mother had to come up there and get me, and I still tried to climb in the wrong vehicle. Like, I was gone. That was, I believe, the first Christmas that we were going to host at our house. Okay. And she needed help. And I was completely dead to her. I could not physically get out of bed the next day. There was one time when I got so trashed that as I needed to pee, I thought I was in our bathroom, and I was in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was like at 11 o'clock at night, and she was pregnant, if I'm remembering this correctly, and she had to clean it up.
Mm.
Yeah. So, things like that.
It sucks remembering that, doesn't it?
It's horrible remembering that. Yeah. And it's embarrassing. And the last thing I want to do is embarrass her and
right.
embarrass my kids. But I mean, that's how far gone I was.
Yeah.
And in my viewpoint, if that can help somebody like realize that, wow, I've done that same thing.
Or even if somebody's in that position.
Yes.
Because when you're in that position, you feel like there's no way out.
Yeah.
Like you feel stuck in that position.
Like I felt like this was my world now.
So to see somebody like myself and Andrew who have been so far gone to where God's brought us now, I promise you there's hope.
Oh, there's always hope.
There is hope.
Yep. I was about to say, I'm pretty sure your mug says hope. Yep.
This is a Valley Creek mug.
Yeah, I saw that.
They delivered this to the old job that I worked at.
Really?
And I was like, I go to that church. I'm taking this mug home.
Hey, man, I would too. You stole a Valley Creek mug. Dude. Man, I can't believe you.
I asked my boss before I took it.
Okay, there you go.
I was like, they delivered it to the company. Does anybody here want it?
There you go. If
like,
not, I'm taking it.
If not, it's mine.
Dude, I love that. I was kind of jealous when I first saw you holding it. I was like, man, I want a Valley Creek mug. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I hope that doesn't offend anybody. I hope it doesn't.
No. Trust me, the page that we put this on, ain't nobody gonna be offended.
Well, I figured they wouldn't.
Ain't nobody gonna be offended.
No, but even just, I mean, I was gone.
Yeah.
And I might be remembering this incorrectly because alcohol tends to distort that.
Yeah.
But that might have happened twice. I honestly cannot. I do know 100% it happened once. I'm not 100% sure that it did not happen twice. I cannot remember that. But just and then thinking about it from like an external viewpoint of, that's how my kids viewed me.
Mm-hmm.
That's like coming home drunk, and like that's how my kids viewed me. And so many children view that every day. So many parents that happens to every day.
Yeah.
And what type of message is that sending my 15-year-old son? Because he's going to model his father.
Absolutely.
Right. And my daughters,
and pick up on a lot more than we think.
Oh, absolutely they do. Yeah. And my daughters, what is that going to allow them to think is acceptable for their husband?
Right.
And the future father of their children to do.
Yeah.
And so when we think about stuff like that, that's what God is talking about, generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
It's the things that we are doing in the world that are allowing those generational curses to develop and happen in our family.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not God putting a curse on you.
It's not God putting a curse on you at all.
Yeah.
No, God is a God of love. He's never going to do anything that's going to hurt you. He wants your well-being. He wants you to be happy, joyful, taken care of.
Yeah.
That's the world. That's the enemy that does that, right? And so, the alcohol was definitely an issue. And that led to the point that I'll eventually get to. So let's back it up and let's talk about the pornography. Okay. So I have a high drive. Let's just
a high drive. What do you mean, Andrew?
Yeah. I have a high drive. And which I'm not making an excuse at all. This is not an excuse to use pornography, so please don't think that at all. But when I felt like, so because of the conflicts that I was creating at home, right, and the division and the absenteeism by me, right, I was not being connected to my wife. I was not being able to take care of her needs.
Sure.
Which are not, most women don't care about money.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be taken care of, yes. And we need to, and they want to be secure. but they want your presence. They want your love, your affection, your attention. Especially if you have kids, they want their children to have the love, the affection, the attention of their fathers. And that's what my wife, I feel truly craves, is my presence in our marriage and my presence in our home with our kids.
Yeah.
And for so long, and I mean so long, we did not have that. Like, she did not have that at all for me. And because I was creating the conflict with the working and the alcohol, the connection was not there. Like, the physical connection, the emotional connection was not there. So why would she want to, make love? Why would she want to do that physical act? She didn't at all, right? Which led me to pornography. So where you think you're going, because that's what you think you want, it's a complete opposite. Mm-hmm. It distorts your brain. It distorts your thought process on pornography, especially if you're a teenage boy and you've never actually been in that type of relationship, which obviously teenage boys aren't going to be in and sex really should be confined to marriage. It was made for marriage. It was made for a husband and wife to what am I trying to think here? It was made for a husband and wife to physically show love to each other. It was made for procreation,
it creates
to multiply.
that intimate bond.
It creates that intimate bond.
Yep.
Two flesh becomes one.
Yep.
So really, the best way and the only way that sex should truly be experienced is in a loving marriage relationship.
Yes.
And pornography completely distorts that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Pornography promotes multiple relationships. Pornography promotes that it's just a physical act. No. I think it's so hard when you have sex outside of marriage. I think it's so hard when that hurt occurs on breakups and everything like that. It's because you're doing something that was, when sex is involved, you're doing something that was meant for two souls to become one.
Yes.
You're meant for a bonding experience. And you have bonded with that person in the most intimate way that you truly can, outside of praying with somebody, in my opinion.
Right.
You've bonded with that person in such an intimate and close way, and that's why the heartache happens so hard outside of marriage when that happens. Because that's such a powerful act between two people that God created for that very purpose. But yeah, and then pornography completely distorts that. Like I said, multiple partners, how nasty pornography actually makes it when it should be a loving moment.
It's
between
depraved.
two people. It's depraved. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's sinful. It's depraved. It's nasty. It is not like
that's
what the real thing actually is.
When I describe like the point of sexual immorality that I got to, that's typically the word that I go to is depraved.
It's depraved. Yes.
Because that's how when I look back on it, I'm like, everything that I did from the type of pornography that I watched to actually stepping out of my marriage, it's depraved.
Yeah.
It's so twisted.
Yeah.
And what it robs you of between your wife.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And not only that, I mean, how does it make her feel when you either confess to her or she finds out that you've been looking at other women, that you've been lusting after other women? And that's the other thing, too. I truly think it really opens the door. Pornography does. So you think that it's confined to a room or a space, but then you start to get out into the real world and you see an attractive woman walking down the street, and now your thoughts are impure, and because your mind goes to the videos that you've seen, and now you're putting her face in that video.
Well, and what it does too is, from my experience, I became not satisfied with just having sex with my wife. I became not satisfied with just watching porn. Plus, you throw in the drugs, which are messing up my thought process, messing up my reasoning skills, messing up my reality.
Yeah.
To now I'm comfortable enough in my depravity to step out of my marriage. So this thing, which was just a video every now and then, has now snowballed to full-blown drug-fueled affairs.
Yeah.
And that's not who I was at one point. So it snowballs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Snowballs, distorts, destroy. I mean, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly. So you started stepping out.
Yeah.
So I never got to that point, but the thoughts occurred.
Right.
I mean, I hate to say it.
Yeah.
And not that, I always like to sit here and say, well, I never actually would have. I don't know.
Right.
Because I was the alcohol, the pornography, the no connection at home.
Yeah.
Right. So I really don't know 100% to tell the truth. But yeah, I mean, it lets in lust, and I think sexual sin is, I'm not 100% sure what the Bible says on it, but in my opinion, it's like, to me, it's one of the worst things, because it destroys and distorts and perverts something that God created so beautifully for two people to encounter with each other.
Yeah.
In a unified, covenanted marriage.
Yep.
Right? Because I think that the marriage is obviously it's a direct representation of the church. Men should love their wives as Jesus Christ loved the church. Well, how did Jesus Christ love the church? Jesus Christ died for the church. Mm-hmm. So we as men should be willing to die unto ourselves for our wives and put them above and before ourselves, right? Yeah. And I think that's one thing that a sexual relationship, a healthy, beautiful sexual relationship in a marriage does. Yeah. Right. It helps you get to that level. Not saying that you won't without it, but I think it's part of it. Right. And so, I was not feeling the love and connection at home. So I went elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Right. And so my mind went elsewhere. And as you start to little by little let it in, it snowballs. It gets bigger and bigger, more and more and more. And you start to think about it in different ways. You start to watch different types of videos. You start to, it's nasty. Yeah. Looking back on it now, it's nasty. Yeah. Absolutely. It's gross. It's nasty. It's nothing compared to what the real thing is at all. At all. The real thing is mind-blowing. It's great. It's awesome. Right? It's exactly what it should be.
Well, I'm big on anything that God creates, the enemy creates a counterfeit.
Yes.
And the counterfeit is never going to touch how good the real thing is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So,
and, it's counterfeit, and it's depraved.
Yep.
And that's exactly what the enemy tries to do. He tries to destroy everything good that God created. You said it perfectly. Yeah. And so, as time went on, the pornography got more and more and more and more. And I would try to watch it whenever I could. I mean,
now Nina obviously knew about the alcohol.
Yeah.
Did she know about the pornography?
Yeah. Once I finally told her, yes.
Okay. But through most of it, it was more of the hidden act.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely more of a hidden act.
Okay.
Until one day and this was before I truly started working on myself. So I brought it up to her one day. I said something, because I've always felt that it was a problem.
Yeah.
And it was always something. And so the weird thing is, I never regretted drinking a beer, which is the weirdest thing. I always regretted the hangovers. One, obviously, because of how they make you feel.
Yeah.
But two, especially if I'm completely useless to my family the next day, right?
Right.
I never regretted drinking a beer, but immediately I would regret watching the video.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. Like the alcohol to me was well, it's only bad if I go over the edge. Well, I continuously went over the edge with it. The moment I would watch a porn video, I felt nasty afterwards. I felt gross afterwards, which that really only started happening, the further along I got to when I really had my eyes open, so to speak, which was about 3 years ago. Okay. But the closer I got to that moment, I started to realize, I started, I guess, to get convicted.
Okay.
And I don't know why, because we weren't heavy into church. So, like I said earlier, I grew up Southern Baptist, right? My wife is cradle Catholic, right? So she grew up in the Catholic faith.
Cradle Catholic. I like that.
Well, that's what they call them. You never heard
I didn't know. No.
Yeah. So if you are born into a Catholic family and they baptize you in the Catholic Church as a baby, you are called a cradle Catholic.
That's hilarious.
You've been Catholic since birth, right?
Okay.
And so once we got married, and it was my choice, I joined the Catholic faith. Right?
Okay.
I went through the RCIA process for a year, and I went through the Catholic faith. And at first I was on fire for them. And one of the things that really attracted me to the Catholic faith was just the history of the Catholic Church and things of that nature, because I'm a huge history freak. And so I was going good for a while. Like, I was on fire for a little bit, but man, it fizzled out real quick.
Yeah.
And it got to the point on the Catholic Church to where we were just going to check mark a box every Sunday. It wasn't to be in a relationship with Jesus. It wasn't to know more about him. It wasn't to grow as a disciple at all. It was literally just, we've got to get up on Sunday morning. It's a mortal sin. We've got to go.
Right.
You know, I didn't mean to hit your table.
That's okay.
Sure, I'm not the first.
No. You see me struggling to get
I know, right? Right? Yeah, it was more of a I'm just gonna go, let's get it done for the day type of thing.
Yeah.
And there was like no sense of community.
Okay.
And it felt more like, and this is her too, like we've had this discussion quite a bit. Like, we would walk into the church, and if you had kids with you, and kids, we both know kids aren't going to sit. You know, depending on how old the kid is, they don't want to sit there.
No.
Like, dude, my 5-year-old, no, he's going to flip that pew over. He's going to do everything he can not to sit there. Right. And, man, you just have these eyes on you, and it's quiet. And, like, when I think of worship in heaven, I'm thinking of joyful. I'm thinking of angels I'm thinking of us having our hands up, being in awe of the mighty and glory of God, right?
Yeah.
Not almost dead quiet.
Yeah, no.
Right? And so there were certain things, and I'm just real quick, I'm not bashing the Catholic faith at all. This was my viewpoint and what I eventually got to, right?
I will not lie. The Catholic faith freaks me out.
Really?
Yes. And I think it's because all the conspiracy theories I've heard. Like,
I
like conspiracy theories, but all the stuff I've heard freaks me out.
Well, and I know a lot of Catholics that have a very deep relationship with Jesus.
Sure.
Like, my mother-in-law is a very devout Catholic, but man, she loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now, we don't see eye to eye on certain things, like us leaving the Catholic faith and finding our own way to Jesus. But I don't think, I think the end game is Jesus. I don't think it's, now, as long as it's biblical doctrine.
Sure.
And it comes from the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just not making up your own words.
Right.
The end goal is Jesus. The end goal is a relationship with your Lord and Savior. And if you truly believe that he is your Lord and Savior and who he said he was when he spent his 33 years on this earth.
Right.
And for me and my family, we 100% do.
Yep.
Right. But we just weren't finding the community or the discipleship or the leadership, so to speak, in the Catholic, in the church that we were in.
Yeah, yeah.
Not saying the Catholic Church in general, just the church that we were in.
Sure.
Right. And so, we were going, the pornography, the alcoholism, and we had some knockout fights in my house. And I don't mean physical. I mean, like just, FYI there. I mean, just confrontation, conflict. I mean, we were literally just, at this point in time, we were roommates and we were far separated. Right.
Yeah.
And, we would argue back and forth. We would fight back and forth, and she would say things, and I would say things back, and I would say things, and she would say things back. So it was a lot of retaliatory,
right,
and not actual. Let's get to the root cause of the issue here. Let's sit down and talk about this type of thing. It was a lot of that, right,
okay.
And a lot of it was over alcoholism. The porn really hurt her, obviously, as I would really think it would hurt any wife.
It breaks trust.
It breaks trust massively.
It breaks security.
Yes.
It's devastating.
Yes.
Was that a hard conversation?
It was a hard conversation, yes. Yeah.
For you on your end, was it tough to...
It was very tough.
Admit it?
It was very tough to admit it. Now, I would be completely lying to you if I said it went away after that.
Sure.
Like, because at this point in time, we were not doing life with Jesus. Right. And so, as I'm sure you've experienced, and I'm sure a lot of men experience, so we're problem solvers, right? We like to get shit done.
Yeah.
We want to handle situations, right? Well, okay, I'm stronger than this. I can beat this.
Yeah.
Nah, man, like maybe less than a week. Maybe less than a week, right?
It's a whole different sin, man.
It's a whole different sin, man. It grabs you big time, right?
Yeah.
And so the alcohol was still flowing and going. I backed off maybe a couple of times, and then I'd be right back into it again. Like, oh, I can quit this, and I'd be right back into it again. Again, not doing life with Jesus, right? And so just the conflicts kept coming, and she would say things every once in a while, and I would be like, well, I mean, do what you got to do. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
And what type of conversation is that to have with who your spouse is supposed to be?
Oh, it's
right?
so cold, man.
It's cold, dude, and I didn't
heartless.
care. It's heartless. And
I sat across from Amber, and you guys have heard this before, but I don't know if you have. I sat across from Amber in a counseling session one time when we were separated. We were starting to go to counseling to see if we could salvage things.
Yeah.
And I was so cold to her that I looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, I don't love you anymore.
Wow.
I don't want you. And she just sat there and sobbed. And I was just stone cold.
Wow.
But I was the drugs that I was on, I was numb.
Yeah. I
had no feeling or emotion in me for anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I get it.
It's
amazing to look back and see how cold we were to the most important, precious person in our life.
In your life, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I feel about her now.
Yep.
And it's like you look back on those instances and you're like, what was I doing? Like, who was this dude?
Yeah.
Like, this was not
this
was not who I used to be at all.
No.
Right? And I think a lot of, well, I'll get to that point. Yeah, man, it was, do you mind if I ask how long ago that was?
That was 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, from meeting y'all, and I know we don't know each other super deep, but I never would have guessed that.
Oh, man.
Like that's how, I'm guessing that's how much of a 180.
Oh,
like
completely different person. Yeah. Completely different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to sit down and tell you. We'll have to go to dinner and tell you my whole story.
I would love that.
Because it got dark.
Dude.
It got dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wicked.
It was.
Man. But yeah, I mean, to sit there and tell the person that you're supposed to love more than anything besides Jesus in this world, like the person you're going to do life with, like this might be controversial, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but like I love my kids and I would die for my kids, but I would die for my wife. I chose my wife.
Oh, no. I choose my wife over my kids every day.
Yes.
On purpose. When I walk in from work, my kids immediately run and jump, but I make a beeline for my wife to give her the first kiss.
Absolutely.
Because they need to see that she's more important than any of them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I chose my wife.
Yeah.
Love is not a feeling. I hate, for any of y'all that think love's a feeling. Now, honeymoon phase ends, right? Every morning you wake up, you choose to love the person that is across from you.
Yep.
Every day I choose to love my wife, and she chooses to love me back.
Yep.
There is no quit.
Right.
There is no quit. You get tired of me, take a break.
Yeah.
You get tired of me, go outside, take a nap.
Yeah.
I don't care. Because there is no quit at this point.
Right.
Right. And that's the choice. I think
it's a good way to put that.
I think it's a lot of reasons there's so much brokenness in today's world is you have so many young people thinking that love's a feeling.
Right.
No, love's how you like. I'm attracted to this person, yes, and I love this person. But guess what? 6 months in, that honeymoon phase is over, and you get to start to know the person that lays across from you in bed a lot more than you ever did. And there are things that she does that annoys me, and I'm sure there's things that I do that annoy her.
For sure.
But they are minute and not even worth, right? Not even worth talking about, because my choice to love this woman for all that she is and who God created her to be is so much more powerful than any annoyance or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Not saying you annoy me, honey. I'm just saying. Just FYI, if you guys don't see me for a while after this, okay?
I know I annoy Amber. The other night, Faith was in here, and Amber was so tired.
Oh, yeah.
And she finally crawls into bed, and Faith was standing over here. I said, Faith, you will see something cool. So I hop out of bed, I run over here, and I just start doing like flips over Amber while she's trying to lay. Oh, dude, she got so mad.
Well, I think that's a good marriage when the husband annoys the wife.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's one of the things it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Because do we really ever grow up?
No.
Not really. No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, so like literally sitting there and telling her, like, if you don't like it, leave. I don't care what you do, leave.
Right.
There was one time early in our marriage, she literally did take the kid and leave. It was when we were first married. Sophia might have been 6 months old.
Okay.
And I didn't care. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
You're going to do whatever. I really don't care. This is, I need to pay for things. You want food on the table.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to work, right? And it was one of those hard, I don't even remember the conversation, but it was just one of those things. It was like she literally took the kid, she made it around the block, and she came back, and we kind of sat down and talked. But man, as the years went on and the pornography got deeper and the alcoholism got deeper and just that coldness and that distance got deeper, man, I just, I don't care. Do what you want to do. It is what it is, I'll figure it out. And so alcohol, pornography, I'm sorry if this isn't like detailed.
It doesn't need to be detailed. Okay. People know it. So people can figure it out.
Yeah. So I had a lot of anger too, right?
Okay.
And one thing, obviously y'all probably figured out we go to Valley Creek. So, one thing when I first sat down and talked to somebody at Valley Creek was, they were asking me about the anger. I could never really pinpoint it, right? I had troubles. Like, I've had a lot of anger in my heart, right? And I really couldn't pinpoint it. And then I've never really told anybody but Nina this. I think I figured out what it was.
Okay.
So as I started making the changes, and I'll get to that point in a minute, but the anger flowed with me, right?
Okay. And
I had so much anger for the world, so much anger for, just anything. Like, I just didn't think that I was where I should be in life. I would feel at times that, if we didn't have 5 kids and she had a job, and even though I was making great money, and it was all of that distortion, right?
Yeah.
The pornography, the alcohol, what the world tells you a man should be, or how your finances should be, and things of that nature. And being able, looking back on it now, being able to say that my wife has stayed home for probably 95% of our marriage and been a stay-at-home mom, which, again, is not just being a stay-at-home mom. That is the hardest job there is, in my opinion, in this world. Like, no joke. And then homeschooling them, on top of it, like, I would go crazy.
It's too much.
I would go crazy. I don't know how they handle it, to be honest with you.
I'm going to pause right there. I told you I was going to have to do this.
Man.
I got pee.
No, you're good.
I'll pay attention to you now.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. Resume.
Okay. So, the anger thing. So I think I pinpointed it, and I think it had a lot to do with my dad.
Okay.
And so my mom and dad had a lot of issues that I was not aware about.
Sure.
Until I was older, right? And so it was his second marriage. It was her third marriage, and they are no longer together.
Okay.
And he had an alcohol problem with his first marriage.
Okay.
And then apparently and I'm not doing this to bash him at all, a money issue with the second marriage, which would be my mom.
Okay.
And so when I was 18, I found out that he had, I think it was 18. I found out that he racked up 6 figures worth of debt in my mother's name.
Wow.
He knew her signature. He knew her social, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, looking back on it, you start to figure out that, oh, hey, that makes sense now why he did that. Oh, that makes sense now why he did that. Not the racking up the debt, why he was doing certain things that now you look back on it over time, you're like, wow, he's being real secretive.
Yeah.
Right? Things you didn't, you wouldn't think of at the time. He's just your dad.
Right.
Or he's your husband or whatever, right? And so she tried to work through it with him, but long story short, they ended up splitting. And he couldn't hold a job down after that. Got kicked out of apartment complexes after that because he couldn't pay for anything.
Sure.
And he was, for being a young guy, 18 years old, and for your dad to live in his truck down the street from you.
Yeah.
And to ask your friends for food or money is real embarrassing, right?
Sure.
Now, looking back on it now as more of a Christian, you have, sorrow for that person.
Sure.
You want to help that person. But that's not the way I viewed it. He was my dad, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this? What? And then, so anger builds up, he's embarrassing me type of thing, stuff like that. And the thing that he did to my mom, kind of broke up the family, things of that nature. Made it a lot harder for her.
Isn't that funny? When we're younger, we don't view our parents as people per se.
Yes.
We view them as, you're my father, you should be acting this way.
Yes.
But as an adult looking back, you're like, oh, you were a person that was hurting, that was struggling.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sad.
And if you don't know where to go or how to deal with it, right? Like I'll be honest with you, man, I credit everything to Jesus.
Yeah.
And the changes he made in my life.
Sure.
And so I'll come to that. But yeah, and there was one point that he and I almost came to blows. He was in a hotel room and he had said something, and I can't even remember. It was so insignificant to me. I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember it set me off, and we started getting physical with each other.
Yeah.
And I remember pinning him down on the bed, and I was about to start. I mean, I had my hand up, fist made, everything. And this is your dad. This is your father. And however you feel about him, I heard a great saying recently, a few weeks back, you could probably remember this, is Faith probably remembers it, we don't honor those around us because of who they are, but because of who their creator is. Right? And that hit me powerfully. Like, I've never thought of it that way. That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, he's a child of God.
Sure.
Right? And he was lost, lonely, and broken.
Yep.
And I was lost, lonely, and broken at that time. I had no clue how to help him then.
Right.
But the reason I say I think this is where my anger started to stem from and everything was because it made it so much harder on my mom. And I've seen her and she's no walk in the park either. I mean, she's got, we have our differences as well, which probably helps some of that grow a little bit. But him specifically, just being my dad and having those interactions with him. But then one day, I was early in my walk, and I had realized, I don't remember what it was exactly, but I had realized that I had never forgiven him.
Yeah.
And I called Nina up one day, and I was like, I think I need to call him and let him know that I forgive him. It doesn't mean I want a relationship with him.
Sure.
I found out real quick that when I would allow him back into my life, that he was only coming over to see me, and he pretty much wanted nothing to do with the kids. He's never really taken any type of time to get to know Nina.
Yeah.
I don't know what the problem was with them from the very start. When I started dating her the first time after I split from the other one, he was very upset about all that. Like, it's not your relationship, dude. Yeah. It's kind of weird. But he never really took the time to get to know her, and he never did. And so at that point, man, if you're not going to come around to be with my wife and kids, then, I mean, what are we doing here?
Right.
And that's the way I viewed it, and that's the way I still view it. And they, he would never do anything with him when he came over. He would never take the time or anything like that. So I called him up one day and I said, hey, we talked probably for about 20 or 30 minutes. I told him, I just feel like I need to forgive you. I said, I was straight with him. I said, it doesn't mean I want a relationship with you at all. I said, I just really feel like I need to forgive you for everything that you had done.
Right.
To Mom, what it caused, the family, what it caused me down the road. I said, I just really feel like I need to forgive you for that. And he broke down and bawled. And that was it. After that, it was like a giant weight off of me.
Yeah.
For that aspect of it. But so I believe that's probably where the anger came from. Okay. It was that, and it was is your relationship with if I can ask this?
You can ask me anything.
Is your father in the picture? Do y'all have a good relationship?
Yes.
So I think
he lives. If you look through that window, you can see his house.
I thought that was Amber's family.
No. That's my parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Okay. Yeah. A father figure in a child's life is necessary and needed.
I'll say this. Now we're close. Growing up, we were not close.
You were not, yes.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And so my dad, even growing up, my dad was never a dude that I could run. He was, I don't know, he was just unengaged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I remember him playing like catch with me in the backyard. Maybe coming to some of my sports stuff in school, but past that point, I don't remember a lot of him growing up, right? And I just think that a father should be like, I do not remember him at all messing around with me like I mess around with my sons or my daughters, right? No. At all. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way he was raised. Maybe it was that older generation. I don't know, right? But
I think it was.
I think it has a hand to do with it.
For my dad's case, my dad grew up with a very abusive alcoholic father who ended up committing suicide when he was like 14 or 15.
Wow.
So it was just him and my grandma. And so my dad never had an example of, so the type of dad he was compared to the type of dad that he was fantastic in his eyes.
Yeah.
He did a great job, and he did do a good job. But there was no affection. There was no connection like I have with my daughters.
Yeah.
But the difference is he also wasn't like, the whole goal of this is to get men to embrace a lifestyle with Jesus.
Yeah.
He didn't have that.
Oh, yeah.
He took us to church every Sunday, but it was just that checkbox.
It was that checkbox.
There was I never saw like a personal relationship between my dad and Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason that I am the father that I am today is because I have a relationship with Jesus. That's it.
Hands down.
That's the only way I know how to be loving and compassionate and caring to my daughters.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Not because I saw it as an example for me growing up, but because I go to him and say, I need you to teach me how to do this. I don't know how to be a dad, but you do.
Absolutely.
So if I become more like you, then I'll be a good father. Yep. Then I'll be a good husband. That's the only way I can do it.
Yeah. Oh, hands down.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Yep. That's literally the only thing. That's literally the only reason I truly believe that I'm sitting here right now still married.
Yeah.
Is because so it got to the point to where we were sitting down one day, and I don't remember what it was. I don't even remember what we were fighting about, but she looked at me and she said, if I had the balls, I would have left you a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, out of all the conversations we had, why that one hit me the hardest. And man, it hit me hard.
Yeah.
And so I think about a year went by after that, and like I call it my crash and burn year, right?
Okay.
Had a great job, worked for a good company that I never would have had to worry about ever. If I just came in, did the bare minimum, I never would have had to worry about my job, right?
Yeah.
And man, I just crashed and burned. I kept looking for external fixes, right? Like, well, if I can get a different job with less stress, you know, where I can make more money, or if I can do this, if I can do that, right? And so I call it my year of crash and burn. And so it was literally, I think, just 15, 16 solid years of living for the world, alcohol, pornography, anger, just go, 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 right?
Yeah.
And never, just go, go, go. And it was just the destruction of me.
Right.
And I didn't lose that job. I quit like multiple times, actually, throughout that year. It's the weirdest thing, right? And the last time they did not try to keep me to stay.
Yeah.
Do not blame them, hands down. Do not. Wonderful place to work, wonderful family to work for, right? And man, I was like, you know what? I'll go back into retail. I've done retail management. I'll do this, right? I don't care about the drive. It is what it is, right? Buc-ee's hired me and didn't.
Yeah.
As an assistant GM. And about 3 months in, I was like, dear Lord, what did I do? This is horrible, right? Good job. But what was I thinking? I have 5 kids. Why do I want to work 2 days, day off, 3 days, day off? And honestly, I mean, sometimes there was a stint where I worked like 12 days in a row.
Yeah.
Right. And then they try to give you 2 days off, like back to back right after that. And it's like, this is horrible. And then one morning I'm getting up at 3:00 to get there by 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day I'm not having to get there until like 9.
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I doing? This was stupid.
Yeah.
Right. And about that time is when you know, I reached out to Chad. And it's funny because our daughters growing up had been friends, right? And I've barely ever said 2 words to him. Yeah. Except at like their basketball games and stuff like that.
For those of you that don't know, Andrew and I, we go to the same church and we also work at the same company.
At the same company. Yes.
So Chad is our boss.
Yes. Andrew B. Gas. It's a shameless plug, isn't it? But yeah, and he's a fantastic dude to work for and to honestly just do life with. Yeah. To be honest with you. Man, I reached out to him on the whim, like never barely said 2 words to him before. My wife and his wife talked a lot more than we ever had. And he just took the time to sit down with me. And in his own words, you know, he could tell that there was something more, that this was about something more than a job. Yeah. Right. And I kind of told him where I was. I didn't relay all of the information to him, but I kind of told him where I was. And so around that time, we got invited to his daughter's baptism, right? Okay. And so we went to Valley Creek, and we were like, wow, this is kind of cool, you know? Never experienced anything like that before. That, you know, and you know, I looked at Nina and I was like, you want to come back next week? And she's like, yeah, sure. And at this time I was not in the rebuilding phase, right? Yeah. I had not made the drastic changes that I needed to make yet, but they were coming. Yeah. Right. Unbeknownst to me, they were coming. It's amazing how God works, right? And so we were like, yeah, let's come back next week. We'll check it out, you know, check out a service. And we came, we were like, wow, that's cool. You want to come? And dude, we've been going ever since, and it's been completely life-changing. And so all of this, actually, I take that back. If I had the balls, I wish I would have had the balls to leave you a long time ago, actually happened like right after my year of crashing and burning. I think that was the start of it. That was the start of me. That was literally the start of God breaking me to bring me to Him. Yep. Like, it's time. Yep. Right. And so I'm sorry, my time frame was off. That actually happened afterwards. So that happened. That year happened of me crashing and burning and finding my way, so to speak. And Enderby Gas helped me in the aspect of it gave me more of a home life, right, than I had ever had, or than I had ever allowed myself to have, really. Yeah. So that was that aspect of it, right? But I was still, you know, at the time, stuff like that. And then, so Enderby Gas, or the new job, the church, and all that kind of all happened around the same time. And I just remember So we went, and then, like first time at churches, you fill out the thing like, hey, we're new to this church, blah, 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 whatever it is. And I remember the pastor reaching out through text message. He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and man, I'd love to get to know you. I was like, bet, let's go. Like, I could use some help at the moment.
Yeah.
And we sat down. What was supposed to be like a 30-minute conversation, I think ended up being an hour and a half, right? And what?
We had that same meeting with Brian.
That's funny. And
we met at Chili's.
Did you?
Me and him were like, what do you know about deliverance?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, Lord.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Man, I was like, dude, I just kind of like laid it out for him. And I think I literally started crying, like talking to him about it, right? And he man, I tell you what, I probably drove that man crazy for probably about the first 6 to 9 months, because dude, I was wrecked.
Yeah.
Like, I was wrecked. We would go, so she said that to me, and I mean, we were working on our marriage. Like, I was still trying to examine things from external viewpoint, right? Like, well, let's try this, right?
Yeah.
All the while we started going to Valley Creek, and I don't contribute this to Valley Creek. I contribute the changes that were made in me to Jesus Christ. And the reason I always say Valley Creek, though, is because I believe that was the tangible tool that he used, right?
Same.
The leadership, the messages, I mean, everything, the people, it all hit at one time. There is no way that what happened to me was not his timing when it needed to happen, right? But me being stupid and, hard-headed, and it took a while for me to, click it. But man, we started going, right, and we started to. So there were some things that we did. So we would sit down and talk, and one of the things that she was just open and honest with me. One of the things she asked me was so let's just be honest, Andrew. If say these changes that you claim you're making, if I'm not happy with them in, say, 3 months or 6 months or whatever the time frame is or whatever it was, and I decide this isn't worth it, what are you going to do? Go back to being yourself? And I was like, no. I said, I looked her literally dead in the eye, and I was like, no. I said, I'll continue to go to church. I'll continue to try to get closer to Jesus, and I will do everything I can to show you and these kids how much I truly love y'all. And she just kind of sat there. She didn't respond back. And I remember looking at her and be like, was that okay? And she was like, yeah, that was more than okay. Right?
Yep.
And she had always been the spiritual leader in our marriage.
Right.
Like, up until this point. Well, she was still probably the spiritual leader at that point, to be honest with you. It got to the point to where she would say things like, well, God's always taking care of us. It got to the point to where I resented that.
Oh, yeah.
And like, how do you resent God? Like literally now thinking about it, how do you resent your own creator? Like, I started to resent, not that I would resent God. That might be hard, be too much. I don't know. But maybe so. I got to the point to where I was resenting every time she said, not during this part, but leading up to it.
Yeah.
Like, well, God's always taking care of us. I've always taken care of us.
Right.
I'm the one going to work every day. Okay, but now looking back on it, well, God didn't have to put me in those situations.
Right.
God didn't have to provide me those type of jobs. God didn't have to get me that pay raise.
Right.
God didn't have to do this. God doesn't have to do any of it.
No.
Right? But because of his grace and his love, he did. But it got to the point, like, I wasn't viewing it that way at all. But she would say, well, God's always provided. God's always helped us. God's always made a way. It got to the point where I was resenting that. Like, I hated it. I literally at one point told her, I was like, I don't want to hear that. Like, literally, I cannot stand it when you say that. Like, those words came out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Up into this breaking point. And it's like, you look back on things like that, and you're like, man, how stupid was I?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And so anyway, we started going to church on a regular basis. And it was like every message was like just John slapping me in the face, right? Like Jesus himself being like, wake up, whatever it was. Like, man, I was getting hit, right? But I was still viewing things externally, right? I was still like, I mean, I even remember one time coming home after one of the services, and it was truly the first time I had understood that a husband is supposed to love his wife as Jesus loves the church, right?
Yeah.
And it was during the Hope Carrier series, I believe, and but it was the way it was defined and taught.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this I've never thought of it that way. I've never thought of it in the terms of our marriage and the way that Jesus loves the church,
right?
And the dying to self. But I remember looking at her and being like, I don't know, and I used to not be this way at all. I don't know what's going on, but I really think that God is doing something in me. And she looked at me and she said, I do too. She goes, I just want you to be yourself. I just want you to be yourself.
Right.
Because up until that point, like, I was not myself at all, right? It was the world's version of Andrew. It was not God's version of Andrew. It was not who he created me to be. I had been trying to, because I was looking at things externally as fixes still, and not really understanding the internal fixes that needed to be made yet.
Right.
I was trying. It was like a facade. It was like fake.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't like I was trying to make it fake. It's like I was trying too hard.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like I even had at one point, I was having panic attacks, and I've never had panic attacks. Like, I was literally in our kitchen making dinner one day, right? Because I had realized that, like, I expected my wife to do all this. Like, I'm going to work every day. You can take care of all this.
Right.
You wanted to be the stay-at-home mom. You wanted to homeschool. I'm going to go to work. You can do all that. But I expect all this too. That stupid expectations, right? And, dude, I had realized that I had, expected that. That had come to light to me. And so I was trying to surf her. So during this time period, and I should say this, so during this time period, one of the things that I also learned, and I'll segue back to that, is that when we would make love, she felt like it was more keeping the peace, because she felt like I was okay and everything for like a couple of weeks, and then I would go back to being my normal self, right?
Right.
And so she felt so once she, like, that really broke my heart. Like, once she brought that up to me, like, if I would have had the balls, I would have left you a long time ago. Everything that my eyes were slowly being open to, that right there, that really broke my heart. So as we were rebuilding our marriage, I actually presented to her, like, let's table that. Let's put that act aside.
Right.
Until you're ready.
Yep.
Right. Because I need to show you that I don't just value you for your body.
Right.
Or what you think that I want from you in bed.
Yeah.
I need to show you that I value you as God's daughter and as my wife.
Yeah.
As the person that you are, and not just for a physical activity.
Right.
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 And that was hard. Not going to lie. That was hard.
I'm sure it was, but I can't imagine what that meant to her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it, from my viewpoint and my standpoint, I feel a stronger connection to her now.
Yeah.
In that aspect. And I really accredit it to that.
Sure.
Aside from the changes and the walk that I've started with Jesus, I accredit it to that because it opened my eyes too.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just for her, it was for me. Like, looking back on it now, I didn't view it at that point in time like that, but it was great for me too, because it truly let me, like, I was trying to show her that, but it let me also realize those things about her as well, that she is a beloved daughter.
Right.
That she was created by him. Yeah. That she is to be, like, the best part of me, the crown that I wear on my head, the the helper to make me better.
Yeah.
Right. That's what wives are supposed to do. They're supposed to make us better.
Yeah.
On who we are. And I truly believe that marriage is literally a sanctifying process, because it's going to bring the absolute worst out of you, whether it's alcohol, pornography, or just living with another person that's completely different than you.
Yeah.
It's going to bring the worst part out of you, and it's how those pieces die to allow Jesus and you to be better and to get you to that point. But yeah, so we tabled that, and it felt like forever. It felt like forever, Nick.
Like that 48 hours felt like.
Dude. Oh no, dude, we're talking months.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and dude, when I first shared that with certain people, like, people thought I was crazy, and but even in the Bible, it says that if two agree upon it,
yeah,
then it's not supposed to be forever.
Right.
It's not supposed to be forever at all. Because it allows temptation.
Yeah.
It allows the enemy to possibly gain a foothold or a stronghold. Yeah. But it's not supposed to be forever. But if two are in agreement to it, and they bring it to the Lord for the right reasons.
Sure.
And that's what we were doing, was we were tabling this because we wanted to become closer in our marriage, but we were on this walk with God at the same time.
Yeah.
To begin with. So it was a few months. Yeah, it was 3 or 4 months. Definitely went a lot longer than I thought it was. I'm not going to lie. Okay. So, yeah, didn't realize, but it is not something that I would take back. Like, I view it now as a something that needed to happen.
Right.
For both of us to regain that trust and that view of each other in this way, right? And so we were going along, and man, I was trying everything externally, like, to fix, right? And man, I was standing there making dinner one day, because during that time frame I had started getting a deeper concept of the 5 love languages, right?
Right. And
I realized that I had never really thought of hers, right? And obviously my first one's physical touch. I'm a physical touch person, right? Even if it's just her walking by me and she touches my back, or she hugs me, whatever it is, dude, it throws me for a loop. I love it. So I'm physical touch, and I'm words of affirmation.
Yeah. I
don't give 2 craps if you do stuff for me. Like, it's great, and I love it. Thank you. I'm grateful for it. But man, I can do that myself. Yep. I appreciate it, but thank you. So it doesn't go unnoticed. But yeah, it's words of affirmation, and it's physical touch. So number 1's physical, number 2's words. With hers, I had never really given it much thought, right? And so during this time period, I started to dive into the love languages, right? Because I slowly started to realize that I needed to serve her, right? That's one of the reasons I wear 2 wedding rings, is because this one she actually gave me after she figured out that this was to stay. And she never wanted the marriage to break. She pursued me first. Like, she's always wanted to be with me, right? And so, but that's why I always wear 2 wedding rings. So it's usually this one on the backside, and it's because it's always her going before me. It's closer to my heart. So it's always her. It's just a tangible reminder to me that she always comes first in my life, no matter what, right? And so, so I started diving into the 5 love languages, and I realized that hers are acts of service. My mind just went blank. I hate when that happens. So there's physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service.
I don't know.
Gift giving.
Okay.
And I can't remember the 4th one, but hers are acts of service and words of affirmation.
Okay.
Right? And what's my number 1 is like her 5th. So
don't touch me, just tell me I'm pretty.
That's right. And so like acts of service, right? Yeah. So once I started to realize that, I was like, wow. I was like, so like every morning I wake up, one of the first things I do is I make her coffee every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And she gives me a hard time about it now when I don't have her coffee ready in time.
Yeah.
You know, like this morning she got up and I was sitting on the couch enjoying a cup of coffee and she's like, "Where's mine?" She's like, "You literally sat down before you made mine." I was like, "I'm sorry, I'll get up and make it." You know, but it's something that I've come to enjoy doing. So at first I really was doing it to just show her kindness and love.
Yeah.
But now it's something that and it's weird because all of those have morphed into things that I truly enjoy doing for her now. Right?
Right.
And so, like, I don't like it when she makes her own cup of coffee now.
Yeah.
Like it bothers me. Like, no, you're supposed to wait for me to make your coffee, right? And so it's kind of cool how those have morphed into things that I was doing at first as a tangible show of love, and kindness to her love languages, right? That have morphed into, well, now I just love doing them for her, right? And not saying that I'm perfect, right? There's things that I could be better at. There's things that I could do better at. And it's just life and busyness. And, she tries to pick up the slack when I can't. I try to pick up the slack when she can't, as you're aware of in marriage.
Oh, yeah.
But so I was still trying to fix everything externally, right? And I started having, like, literally, I was standing there making dinner one day and I had a panic attack. I had no clue what was going on. Like, dude, I started freaking out. Like, I had to leave. I had to, like, go to our bedroom and just sit there and, like she came back in and she was like, "What's going on?" I was like, I'm not sure. And I explained it to her. She goes, "It sounds like you're having a panic attack." Because even though she was telling me at this point that, like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is, like, I want to be married to you. This is what I want. Like, I wasn't seeing that.
Yeah.
Like, I was still every day worried. I mean, like worried. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, the first 6 months at the new job, like, it was affecting the job. Like, there were times when Clay pulled me aside and would ask me, like, "Dude, what's going on?" Like the guys training me were like, "Hey, what's he doing?" Like Chad pulled me in and sat me down, and that's when I spilled everything to Chad, right? And yeah, you didn't know that, did you?
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude.
I knew none of that.
Like, I was freaking out, man. Oh yeah, like I was big time.
Wow.
Like, because it was so fresh.
Yeah.
Like, it was so fresh, right? And I didn't know what was going to happen. I just came to the realization that there's a good chance I might lose everything that I've always wanted.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I was so blind to all of it for so long. Oh, yeah, dude, for like the first 6 months, yeah. Yeah. And once I explained it to Clay and Chad, they were like, "Okay, we get it."
Yeah.
They're family guys.
Yeah.
They know. And like, they worked with me. They were grace. They offered grace and kindness and love, and really, brought me up. And so, yeah, so external, I'm still trying to fix things externally, not realizing that it's really me, right?
Right.
And then Pastor Brian said something one day. He's like, "You've got to stop. You've got to stop, dude." He goes, and this is me paraphrasing it pretty much.
Sure.
This was like 3 years ago at this point almost. He was like, or 2 years. Yeah. And he was like, you are trying to view this all from outside. He goes, "Whatever happens to your marriage is going to happen."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, it's been so long. He goes, "Whatever she decides to do is what she's going to decide to do." He goes, "But at the end of all of that, it's going to be you and Jesus, one way or the other."
Yep.
And he goes, "You need to start focusing on your walk with Jesus and how you can become a better person." He goes, "You can't be the best you if you're not the healthiest you."
Right.
Right. He said, so until you start focusing on that, none of this other stuff is going to matter at all.
Yeah.
And man, he was so right. Like, he was so right. Like, once I started the internal process of healing me,
yep,
and becoming closer to Jesus,
right,
that's when everything started to fall where it needed to fall, right? And so
I love that, because that's just proof that we can't do the hard work.
No, we can't at all. I cannot
we
change
can
my
barely
heart.
change habits and behaviors.
Oh, yeah.
But inevitably, you will fall back into those habits and behaviors until that hard work is done.
Yes. And I'm a big believer that I believe that Jesus will meet you where you need to be met.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, like, with me, I'm a tangible person.
Yeah.
Like, I need to feel it, touch it, understand it, whatever it is, right? So that year of crashing and burning, a lot of my alcohol at that point was consumption due to stress at work.
Right.
Right. But I had let the machine go for so long, it got to the point to where it's like, I need a beer in my hand.
Yeah.
I need a beer in my hand. Right. But it was the stress of work that got me to the consumption level that I was at. Right.
Yeah.
Changing the job and going to a sporadic retail schedule for 3 months, whether you believe this or not, man, like, or you believe that this was the reason why, like I drastically cut back in those 3 months. I can't drink and then get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work.
You can,
right?
but
you can, but it's going to be a miserable day, right?
Miserable.
And, but like, I would literally, I mean, there were nights when I would get home from Buc-ee's. I would have enough time to eat dinner, take a shower, and then depending on what time I had to be at work the next day, I was going to bed.
Yeah.
Right? So not a lot of time there for the 4 to 6 in that first hour. Might have 1 or 2. So it gradually started dwindling down, right?
Yeah.
And so that, like, that aspect of it really helped get that part out of my life, like slowly start to cut down on it, right? And then when I switched from there to Enderby and everything like that, the alcohol slowly started, because that's the same time that we really dived deep into Valley Creek.
Right.
And that's the same time that I really started to realize that all of these other things that were holding me, that were strongholds in my life, the pornography, the alcoholism, the anger stuff, that's when those revelations started to come to me little by little. It wasn't just like
right,
aha, eyes wide open moment. It was these little tangible,
yeah,
or these little facets coming to mind all at one time.
Yeah.
And so so when we first started going, I started diving deep into it, and when he started telling me, or when the revelation came from him that he was 100% right, I needed to focus on myself and Jesus,
yep,
and not Andrew and Nina, right?
Right.
That's when the realization came to me that, man, I've never asked for forgiveness, and like I can ask for it, and I want, not forgiveness. I'm sorry, I never apologized to my wife or my kids.
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you what, apologizing to your children for the way that you've acted as their father, that's a next step, hard conversation to have.
Yep.
Dude, I broke down, and I did not think I was going to break down in front of them. Man, I broke down, and I asked them for their forgiveness.
Yeah.
And for how I had treated them, how I had spoken to them, how I had treated their mother, how I presented myself. I mean, all of it. And man, they forgave me. I probably have a better I know I have a better relationship now with my wife and kids than I ever have.
Oh, yeah.
And that is 100% Jesus.
Yeah.
100% Jesus. Because like you said, I could not do this heart work on my own. There is no way that I could soften my heart on my own, man. There was, no doubt. If I'd have kept going the way that I was going, I would probably be divorced, and I would probably still be drinking myself to an early grave, right? Yeah. And I would be knee deep in pornography and lust and sexual deviation. And so once I started, like I said, focusing on that inward journey and setting everything else aside, that's when the dominoes started to fall where they needed to fall.
Right.
And that's really where the changes really started coming from. It went from like on the alcohol level. I mean, the porn still had a little bit of a foothold.
Sure.
But it wasn't much. Like every now and from every day to man, I've got this. I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to get, and then it might be like, 4 weeks and I gave in once. Right. And then you repent, but I wasn't there yet. I wasn't where, like, I hadn't fully given in yet. Right. And, but like the alcohol started to dwindle quite a bit, up until to the point to where I stopped having it in the house. And if we went out to dinner, I might have one, maybe two, to where, last December, I just one day, I don't know what it was, just one day I was like, I don't need this anymore at all. Yeah. And I just stopped, and I haven't had one since.
Good deal, man.
And it's been awesome. And it truly is, something Pastor John said a few weeks ago, and you I know you can definitely probably agree with this, is you can only serve one thing. Mm-hmm. And if you're drinking, dude, that is your master. Or drugs, that is your master.
Oh, yeah.
That is, you can't serve.
I couldn't think about anything else.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
If I had a gram or two left of weed, I'd start having small panic attacks. Like, I need to re-up.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I could think about.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing.
I couldn't go out and do anything with my kids or my wife.
Yeah.
Because all I wanted to do was get back home to smoke.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I couldn't go to a family event without bringing alcohol.
No.
Like, I couldn't go to my in-laws' house.
I remember going in my sister's bathroom and chugging beers.
Yeah.
Just to get through, like, a barbecue.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Dude, invite families over for a kid's birthday. Dude, I'd make sure the beer was, like, the fridge was stocked with it.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't go without it. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Right? And just, man, looking back on it now, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's weird now because now it's like, so you can't serve two masters.
No.
And, man, what I've learned about God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit is, I used to think that I was strong enough, and man, I failed miserably every single time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to give into the porn. I'm watching it. Like 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Like, and then you feel horrible.
It's like split nasty. Personality.
Yeah. And you're like, God, I'm sorry. And the very next day, like boom, you're back on it. God, I'm sorry. and now it's because I didn't allow him in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is weird. It's, you grow up thinking to yourself, like, well, all these bad things happen because God's not punishing you, man.
No.
That's not who God is.
No.
The Bible tells us exactly who he is, and he's unchanging.
Yeah.
Right? And until you truly experience him, you do not, I feel you do not understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I used to think like, well, I mean, God's punishing me. This is like, God, please. I mean, I deserve all this. Like, no, that's not God punishing you. That's the enemy literally lying and deceiving you.
Yeah. And the truth is there are consequences to sin. That's why God warns us about sin.
Yes.
Because he doesn't want to see us have to live out those consequences.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's weird, man. Jesus, the day on that cross, God treated Jesus as if he was me.
Mm-hmm.
And God treats me every day as if I'm Jesus.
Yep.
And that revelation of him loving you, his creation, that much, that he would get off his throne, become man, and experience this life, and then take our debt. It's like we were talking about this word right here.
Yeah.
Like this is this is what he would have said on the cross.
Right.
But this is actually the word that they literally wrote on their debt when it was paid in full. And for that realization, it's mind blowing. It's game changing. Jesus.
That's to think of that. Just the definition of that. Is it tetelestai?
Yeah.
Meaning it is finished, but our debts are paid.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And it's overwhelming. Like that we have that ability to come straight to his throne.
Mm-hmm.
Something Pastor John said a long time ago that really hit home with me is if you only feed yourself once a week, you're going to be starving.
Yeah.
And if you're going to church to just do a check mark and you're not there for the relationship with Christ, because a true relationship with Christ lasts past that 1 week or that 1 hour a week at church. Yeah. Man, there is, like, I look for him daily. Like, I'll be on job sites, and dude, I might be checking a tank, but I'm literally sitting there and I'm praying out loud.
Yeah.
Right. I'm listening to worship music in the truck the entire time. Right. Because I want to be in his presence.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I used to not be this way. I cannot wait for Sundays. I cannot wait for Wednesday nights for students. I cannot wait to serve the cities. I can't wait to do any of it because it's an opportunity to be in community with other people that want to experience the presence of God.
Right.
Right? And I look forward in our home. Like, it's been so game-changing, right? The tangibility that Jesus has used Valley Creek in my life. Yeah. It's been so game-changing. It affects my marriage. It's Jesus. It affects my marriage. It affects my relationship with my kids. It affects how I talk to you. It affects how I interact with people. Like, I used to be one of those guys that wanted to get in and out. Yeah. And now, like, I want to go early because I want to see people. I want to talk to people. I want to greet new people. I want other people to feel the presence of Jesus like I have. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I'm early in my walk, man. I mean, like, I'm early. Yeah. Right? I'm looking forward to the years to come.
What do you see? Because we're going to start wrapping this up. So what do you see in the future that you think God has for you?
Oh, man. I don't know. That's a hard thing to answer, to be honest with you. Well, for myself, just in my walk with Him, just continuing to learn who He is, and who I am in Him. Yep. So the identity. That's another thing. It's a whole nother podcast you could do. Yeah. Is learning your identity in Christ, because I had no clue. Oh yeah. And that was really the game changer. 100%. Was learning my identity in Jesus 100%. And who I am in Him, and not what the world says about me. That's really what it was. But man, I don't know.
I don't know either.
You know,
for myself, I don't know either.
I mean, I really,
as long as He keeps me and keeps giving me revelation on who He is, like you said, dude, I'm good.
Dude, it could be.
I'm game for whatever you have.
I'm game for whatever. You know, so I'll put it to you this way: we're in this missional move season at church, right? Yep. I would love to be on staff, because it's an opportunity for me to be able to impact lives. Yeah. The way that mine have been impacted through this tool. Sure. Of Valley Creek, right? But even if my part in that missional move is that Nick gets on staff, or Nick gets to go to one of the new campuses to even help open that campus as a serve team member or whatever, right? And I get to stay back at Gainesville and fill that role, dude, awesome. Right. I'm fulfilling my purpose in the kingdom right then and there. Yep. That's where Jesus wants me. I'm all for it. Yep. If none of that happens, and I just keep doing what I'm doing, and I grow deeper in my walk with Him, and I become more of a spiritual leader in my home, and my kids' lives are impacted, generations to come for it, awesome. Yeah. I really don't care either way, as long as Jesus is at the center of it. That's really it. Yeah. Yeah. That's where I am now.
The last question I'll ask you is, for all the dudes that are watching this, what's one piece of advice or encouragement that you would give them?
Lean in. Dude, there's hope.
I like that.
There's hope. His name is Jesus. Yeah. It's literally like lean in. Like, that was my thing for so many years, is I would feel Him. Looking back on it now, there were moments. Right. And like I said earlier, and you know this, the Holy Spirit, God is not going to force Himself on you. The world will. The world will drag you kicking and screaming. It does not care about you. The enemy does not care about you. God gave us free will because He wants us to freely come to Him. Yeah. So lean in, take those moments, and just lean into Him. That's good. And see what happens. I mean, that's really, once I started the walk with Jesus, and I could go left or right. I've gone left before. Mm-hmm. I know what that road is, and that's going to lead to destruction. Yep. And that's going to lead to a failed marriage, a failed, father and child relationship. Yep. Or I could go this way, and I can lean in, and I can see what this is about, because I've never truly experienced what this was. Right. And now I'll never go back.
Yeah. Same. Yep. Same. Yep. There's no way I could go back.
No way. At all. I'll never go back.
So good, man.
Yep.
Dude, you got a good story. I appreciate you coming in here and sharing that with us.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you. Yeah. This was a cool opportunity. I was nervous.
Well, you did great.
I was like, I'm just going to stumble.
That was just a good, encouraging story, because it's so relatable. and I've said on our podcast before that your story may not look exactly like Andrew's or exactly like mine, but you can pull stuff and apply it to yourself. There's things that you can recognize in what he's saying about your life that you can apply and adopt into your lifestyle with your relationship with Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we're walking through. The answer is in him.
Absolutely. 100%.
So you can easily relate to that.
Yep.
And like Andrew said, if you lean into that and accept him and believe in him, your life will change for the better.
Yep.
You will become the man that he's calling you to be, the father, the husband.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. You got anything else?
I'm good.
All right. We love you guys. Peace.